Hey, welcome back to my Law of Attraction podcast where we interview successful people to understand how did they manifest success in their health, relationships, career and money so you can also learn from them and attract similar success in your life. Today we are interviewing a man who's the founder of Shadi.com. Yes, you got it correctly. Anupam Mittalji. He's the man on Shark Tank, the investor, the angel investor in the lives of hundreds of entrepreneurs who've become super successful today, not only with the money that he invests in them, but by the knowledge and the wisdom that he brings with himself. Today, you're going to learn the frequency, feelings of Anupam Mittal, his thinking pattern. What does he believe about life? What does he believe about relationships? How does he take action when everything is gone down? There are times in his life where he's gone so down that you can almost use the word bankrupt. Not really, but almost bankrupt, where he lost all the money he had, not once but twice. But here is the crazy part. He's not lost a few crores, he's lost like millions of dollars twice in his life. How did he bounce back? Most people even commit suicide by just losing a few lakhs. What makes people like Anupam Mittal special? Why are they able to handle so many losses? But more importantly, how are they able to retain this level of success? And every time they bounce back, they retain this success and get bigger and bigger and bigger. How is he able to do that? You're getting a sneak peek in his emotions, his thoughts, his beliefs, his action frequency. So this is not just some normal video. This is a workshop on manifestation. So make sure that you take a notepad and a pen, make a lot of notes, pause the video at multiple times, write notes. What did you learn from it? And then give me a recap of everything you learned in the comment section below. There are many times you will observe in this video that I am stopping Anupam from going into multiple details of his life because I want to ask him questions that can help you attract success in your life. So please make sure that you take complete advantage of this podcast, learn a lot, and like I said, share your learnings with me as a recap in the comment section below. Ready? Let's meet the man, Anupam Mittal himself. Here we go. Our mission is to spread this science as a household practice in India, where every person wakes up and the way we brush our teeth, we want people to start their day with positive thinking, start their day with affirmations, be a good human being
Wow.
first, then think about success. We want people to be good human beings first and then think of success later.
लेकिन ये हो सकता है क्या? Because we are always taught कि बचपन से कि do your prayers every day. लेकिन कोई करता ही नहीं है.
बट हमारी कम्युनिटी में करते हैं एवरीडे 2000
Oh, wonderful. Live at the same time.
Same time, 9
With
p.m.
Mitesh.
every day.
Oh, wow.
2,000 people every
Well,
day.
wow.
Yeah.
So they say the same thing?
We read our affirmations that we've created for our life for 4 areas. So we always tell people create affirmations for 4 areas of life: health, relationships, career, and money. So we practice that every day. That's what we call as DMP program. We call it daily magic practice. कैसा लगा आइडिया?
Wow. यार फंडा तो सॉलिड है, समझने की जरूरत है. I'm sure that will create its own vibration.
Yes.
And its own energy field.
So I'll tell you the intention that why we invited you and why we wanted to specifically meet you. So I'm starting this series of podcasts, starting with you being the first one, and I want specifically you as the first one. The reason is we want to now use case studies of people like you to ask you the right questions, interview you to understand your life, because when we meet people like you who are so successful, who are in hundreds of crores, thousands of crores, everybody wants to be like you. And when people look at your success, they're just focusing on your success.
Right.
What they're not focused on is what made you who you are. And I'm here to interview you to ask you the right questions about what were those frequencies, which will help me and help you devise those answers, that's the frequency that made you who you are, with the intention that hopefully people who are listening to this could learn from that mindset to attract what you have today. So to dive into it, the first question I would ask you is, what are the top 5 emotions that you think you live every day, consciously or unconsciously? But what are the top 5 emotions that you live every day, from the time, let's say, you wake up till the time you sleep?
So, joy.
Joy, okay. I can agree with that.
Excitement.
You have a sense of humor.
Must be fun because you have a little one.
I have a little one as well. So she gives me a lot of joy.
Fun must be.
Excitement. I love ideas, right? So anytime I hear of, and I meet a lot of founders with new ideas, so that
Right.
excites me a lot. Anything that's not been done before, so that's always very exciting. Anxiety, because as I said, I've got a bit of a overactive mind than most people. It also
Sure.
makes me very creative.
Yep.
But it comes with some issues.
Yep.
Right?
So joy, excitement, anxiety.
Yeah, that's anger
Anger
and anticipation, perhaps.
and anticipation. Wow.
Amazing.
What
Yeah.
explain in anticipation
Amazing.
as an emotion?
So because I'm always doing new stuff, right? I'm always creating new products or new businesses or investing in new people or raising a little girl. I'm always anticipating how that will turn out.
So if you had to look back, would you say these emotions have been part of you for how long? Joy, excitement, anxiety, anticipation, anger.
Right? As I started to become successful and started doing well, I think there was a certain confidence that comes stride in your step. And, fear takes a back seat. Actually, you feel more ego, right? You feel like you're the one doing it all. And so on. And then you have a couple of setbacks. Like by my mid-20s, I had made a lot of money and I had lost it all. Right. And so that gave rise to some panic attacks, anxiety, fear. And when you go from very high to very low, very suddenly, I feel like the human emotion or our construct is not prepared for that.
Yep.
So it takes a long time to resolve that.
True.
Right. So it took me a few years. And then I was once again in my stride, full of confidence, building, growing. And then again, 2008 happened with Lehman Brothers. And, I was almost bankrupt.
Right.
And this time I had reached even higher. So this time, actually, the crash was a lot worse than the first time. Because the first time, I was very young. I was like, figure it out. Of course, it hurt. Failure always hurts, right?
Yep.
And so second time really knocked the wind out of my sails. And it took me a good 5-6 years to get out. I became very cautious, which is something I was not. My superpower, I always feel, is walking on the edge that most people won't do. But being able to do that and being comfortable with it.
Right.
And all that kind of disappeared and I became extremely cautious. And, कहते हैं जले को फूक क्या कहते हैं
दूध का जला
छाछ भी फूक फूक
के पीता है. So that kind of mindset developed a little bit. And I think it just kept pulling me down and down and down. And whether it was me changing my mindset or whether it was a few things going my way that changed my mindset, I'm unable to put a finger on it, which led to what. But slowly I came out of it. And I think, in the last 5 or 6 years, I've really, really found my stride. And this time it comes with a lot of awareness and understanding of myself. I feel like I'm creating Anupam 3.0 now. That's going to be my next 20 years, right? So if I look at 3 different phases, the first 20, next 20, and now the next 20.
So let's dissect this from an emotional, aspects of that frequency, right? Feelings, thoughts, beliefs, and actions. When you started off in your first phase, which was the time when you had just started off, what were the emotions that you felt helped you take the right action as an action frequency? If you now look back in your memory saying, okay, if I did not have those positive emotions, I wouldn't have been able to take those actions. What do you think in your memory could those emotions be?
Yeah, no, I'm actually, I know this very well. So there were a few key actions in my life that when I look back, I know they have see, we make hundreds of decisions a day.
Sure.
But I believe that you can make all kinds of wrong decisions. It doesn't matter, right? But you need to make 5, 6, 7, 8 big, really good decisions in your life.
Wow.
And that is what correlates with the quality of your life.
Yeah.
Right. If you make 5, 6 really big, good
Big decisions.
decisions, like where you live, where you spent your youth or grew up, the first job, or, things like that, they can really change. And so when I was 13 or 14, right? And my dad was an industrialist in the sense that he had factories and he had come from a very humble background. He
Mm.
used to make 100 rupees a month, but he had 4 sisters and 3 brothers to take care of. So he had built himself, when we were born into a lot of very humble sort of uh, environment. But he worked hard, and by the time I was growing up, he was a wealthy man
Right.
by those days standards. So the only thing really left for you was to think about entrepreneurship and industrialists.
Right.
And so I used to think about factories for whatever reason. I don't know
Mm.
why. Because my dad had them, or because when we heard about Tata, Birla, Uncle, this, that, whoever, it was always about factories. And I ended up working in my dad's factory for 2 years.
Mm.
Right?
Wow.
I hated it. I have to be honest, because I used to take a train and go to Dombivli every day. So I don't know if I manifested that or
Right.
it was part of my formative years. But for 2, 3 years, I worked in my dad's factory, and I just
After that, if
kind
you
of
had to look at where your upscale started in life, in your first phase of life, and you really started growing, I'm going back to that moment because I want you to interrogate about what were those positive emotions that helped you take the right actions towards what you achieved in the first phase of your life.
Yeah. So after that, right? I mean, I remember. So somewhere deep within, and even today, even then, there is no question in my mind that I'm super successful.
Wow, that's a strong belief.
Okay.
There is no question. There is no two ways about it. So I am a long-term, eternal optimist, right?
Interesting.
There is something very special going to happen with my life. I have always known that, and I still know that. But I am a short-term pessimist. मतलब right now, आज के दिन सब खराब होने वाला. I don't know if you can.
I can relate to that.
That makes sense to you at all, right?
Yeah, because
But
a little bit like that.
okay,
As a
great.
team.
Yeah, but long term, there is unquestionable, right? So I'm a long term optimist. So even then, I remember as a kid, I used to have a Filofax, a black diary. And after that factory stint, I had written down in that diary that I must have been 17, 18, that my definition of success is I want to make 100 crores.
When was this, did you say?
Right.
What age?
This was like my late teens.
And you used to write.
Used to write that.
Yeah, I used to write kind of random thoughts, but this was one of the things that I had written down. And why? Yeah, I have no idea. And so then I tried a few different businesses, but that was the feeling driving it. That
Right.
मैं तो successful बनने ही वाला हूँ. I just have to find out
Wow.
कौन सी opportunity है, where to, right? And so I tried 2, 3 different businesses,
Right.
ये वो, but they failed. ठीक है? Then something very interesting happened. When they failed, I was like, something is wrong, and I was young. And then somehow, and don't ask me how, right? This, and I must have heard it somewhere, but this place called Chestnut Hill used to float in my head those days.
Chestnut.
Okay. Chestnut Hill. It's a place in Boston. Chestnut Hill is a place in Boston. So I went to the US to just hang out with my friends in Boston, right? And I went to Boston College for a tour. I wanted to explore colleges as well because my businesses nahi chal rahe the. So I said,
Right.
Maybe education is what I need because I need some formal structure to my thoughts.
Right.
Right. I'm all over the place.
Right.
So I went there and somehow I fell in love with Boston College, which happened to be on Chestnut Hill. Right. Now, how, what, where, why, I've never tried to think through it, and lo and behold, I got a fully paid scholarship at Boston College.
Wow.
Whoa.
Okay. Now the feeling at that point is mujhe karna hi hai. So for example, I had to take an exam to get admission there. And they're tough entrance exams. And the next date was only about 20 days away. And after that, I would have to delay by 1 year. Uske baad kya hota, I have no idea, right? Because parents would have said, do this, do that. I don't know what would have happened. I rushed back. I locked myself in a room in my sister's house for 2 weeks and I cracked the exam.
Amazing.
Whoa.
right? So, and based on those marks and whatever, I got a fully paid scholarship. And I have never felt so much conviction in my life about that this is something I absolutely want to do. And I think the years at Boston, in the US, Boston College, shaped everything in my mind in terms of my positivity, my work ethic, my confidence. Uh, I think they completely transformed what I
So
did.
the first emotion you said was you just knew that you were going to be successful. You wrote down,
Yeah.
I'm going to make 100 crores. And then this opportunity happened, which you don't know how. You got through Boston, you got this full scholarship.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
created a new level of confidence in you, which that emotion got created. My question is, consider for a minute if those emotions weren't there, if that confidence was not there, if that belief of, I knew I'm going to be successful, I knew I'm going to make 100 crores, if that wasn't there, who would you be today?
Yeah, it scares the hell out of me. So I think about it sometimes. I have thought about it. That's why my answer is so quick. And I know what I would be. I don't even need to think about it. So I have seen uh, a lot of friends, not taking away anything from anyone, but family and friends. Some have done very well, but some of them are extremely frustrated
Mm,
uh, because they probably didn't tap into that emotion or didn't
right.
take the road less traveled. We all came to a path, and I said, "Screw the world! I'm going off, into the sunset. I'm going to figure life out." Right? Some people might have gone somewhere else, but a lot of people said, "नहीं यार, ठीक है, सब कुछ चलते रहो."
Right.
And many of those people are today, I see, very frustrated, angry with themselves, unhealthy, uh, just and knowing who I am because I felt inadequate and never quite, and because of my long-term belief that I will always stand out. If I had to become one of many, I would have been extremely frustrated. So,
Okay, makes sense.
I would have been a small trader in the textile market or something. That's what I would have ended up, right?
Consider right now there's a small time trader listening to you, or there's a person who wants to be successful, but he's struggling right now.
Yeah.
For that person who's looking at your success and desiring to be Anupam Mittal today, how important would you say is for that person to today believe in themselves and say, kuch to ban jaunga, and to have that audacity, and I would really use the word audacity in your case, to write 100 crores in those days?
Yeah.
How?
By the way, I made that 100 crores in my early 20s, and then I lost it. That's the amount that I lost, right?
Yep.
But coming to your question, but coming to your question, look, I say this a lot, right? विश्वास के बिना आदमी 10 कदम भी नहीं चल सकता है. Forget about success, right? I'll give you an example. Okay. Don't go back too far. Just go back to the 1950s and 60s. Nobody had climbed Mount Everest. It was considered impossible.
True.
Today, twin teenage girls together are climbing Mount Everest.
Yeah. Every time.
Right? Yeah. So people are and yes, equipment has become better. I get granted. But there is also a belief that so many people have done it, so I can do it too. Right?
Yes.
There's a role model, there's a confidence. So it all starts with that.
Yes.
That deep conviction, and not upar ka ki aapne apne aap ko bol diya, so you believe. No, there has to be a deep rooted conviction. How do you develop that is harder. But in my case, maybe because of my father, I think my father gives me the long-term optimism and the belief, and my mother gives me the short-term paranoia.
Wow. Beautiful combination there. So if people are listening to you right now, for them to have the guts to write, okay, one day I'm going to make 100 crores like Anupam, the first thought they're going to have is, abhi kaise hoga? Like, लिखना भी नहीं चाहिए शायद मुझे.
You can't think. No, you can't think. You can't think. You can't overthink it. Right?
Can't overthink
See,
it.
No, you can't overthink it. You have to do it. Right? You have to feel it and do it, and then we figure out how. Right?
You've done like this with many projects where you've decided and then the how came up later?
Absolutely. I always start with the end first.
Wow.
So I'm a visualizer, right? I struggle with numbers and stuff on spreadsheets. I have to visualize the end first. Even within my team with leadership, they say they get into long things about this process. We'll do this, we'll do that. I said, hold on. Paint me a picture of what the end state looks like.
Right.
And then you say
The rest of it we'll figure out.
Then you say you don't know law of attraction.
He's the master of law of attraction.
Well, I don't. I mean, it's not conscious for me at all.
Exactly what we're trying to prove to people, that you know the number one principle of law of attraction? The number one principle of law of attraction is, these are the exact words in law of attraction. Don't ask how, start with the end result and visualize it.
And there you are.
But here's the thing. For me, for whatever reason, call me lucky or whatever, or unlucky, I don't understand things any other way. Right? So it's just a learning disability maybe, where I need to first know.
I'm glad. I hope everybody has this disability. Bhagwan kare he has disability sabko mile.
Where we are going and what is the purpose and what is the outcome before I spend 1 hour figuring out how.
Right.
Very good.
Wow. Thank you. That helps a lot, to help a lot of people understand how that uphill can start with that conviction that, okay, at least have the guts to write down something like 100 crores and don't overthink it. But then you made that, you said in your 20s, you made that 100 crores. And then you lost it all.
Yeah, you lost it.
I think this is a very important question you have to, I know you want to ask him about when that downfall happened. So when that downfall happened, what were a couple of emotions that you felt at that time that made
after it happened?
After it happened, that kept you stuck there for some time? And if you wouldn't have overcome those emotions, maybe you wouldn't have gone through that phase and gone up to that stride again.
One is, firstly, to be honest with you, for a while, I was not accepting the emotions on me. I was just buried them. And
denial.
On top, I was joyful and celebrating, oh, nothing matters, right? But internally, deep within, I was very angry with myself, right? That how could you do that? You realized your dream and you just I was reckless, right? When I lost it all. And so I was very angry with myself on being so reckless.
Right.
I was also, and because I was angry with myself, I was finding it hard to move on, right? And because of the feeling of being stuck, both physically as well, right? So I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time. Instead of moving, I kind of dug myself deeper and continued to stay in Washington, D.C., although I had no more reason to. So I was now physically stuck and figuratively stuck. Not accepting how I was feeling and the recklessness with which I operated.
Right.
And so if you don't accept it, you can't move on.
Right.
And so I was kind of stuck there. So what did I do? A couple of things. One is I decided to physically move out of Washington, D.C. Right? To me, that was a signal to myself that it's time to move on. Right? Come out of this anger that you're not accepting, right? Come out of this self-victimization mode, I would say.
If I may ask, how long was that self-victimization, self-anger mode?
About a year.
Whoa. Wow. And what?
That's when I was getting panic attacks.
Oh, so what helped you go over that?
So I directed the energy into, and this was the beginning of starting a company in India. Right. So I directed that. So I'd already set up some small operation in India, but I started spending more and more time online with my team in India. So I took that anger and directed it into sort of energy into doing something productive.
Yep.
I somewhere also, this is around 2001. So 9/11 happened. Right, I lived very close to the Pentagon, and when 9/11 happened, it's hard to explain today, but if you lived in the US anywhere close to one of the crash sites, it was hard not to be grateful for being alive and for saying, look, I am so self-absorbed with myself and so much victimization I'm feeling, and look at what just happened around me. Right. And so while it was bad news, for me, it was like Yeah, this is, what happened. Something happened. I'm still alive. I have my whole life ahead of me. So let's get on with it.
Yeah. Can I say
That's
that
when the company
gratitude
started.
of what was happening around you and feeling grateful for what you anyways have, even though whatever was going on, helped you move on a little bit from that anger?
Yeah, gratitude combined with getting out of, self-victimization mode
Mm,
and being action oriented, right?
right.
So taking accountability, right?
Wow.
Once you take responsibility, take accountability
Wow.
that you are the sum of your actions,
Right.
then you have nobody else left to blame. Then you're
True.
forced to take action,
True.
right?
True.
Because my long-term dreams still remain intact. I had just gone ahead, done very well in a few years, and now I was back to ground zero,
Mm.
right? So either I could sit and cry over it, or I could start again.
So,
So
Anupam, since you've gone through it, right now there are people listening to you who are in that moment right now. They're probably in that during that 1 year period or that 1 month period where they're going through that anxiety attack, they're going through the self anger victimization, right? What can you tell them that can help them based on your experience, that can get them go from that anger to that gratitude, from that self victimization to accountability and responsibility? Because I know you've done it, but probably from your experience you could remind them something that they can do today
And that can
to
save
shift.
and that can save them some time. They may not invest then 1 year in that.
Yeah, maybe.
They may stay there very little
yeah,
time.
absolutely. I think that's a great point. And I don't have a formula because I haven't thought about it like that. You're asking me the question, so I'm trying to reach within and figure out the most simple thing to do. Right? I could give you answers like be courageous, be brave, but that's all bullshit. That's
Yeah,
not
but based on your
specific.
experience, not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. I want to be more
Yeah,
specific. So
exactly.
I'm trying to be. So I'll tell you what. Right. When you have a big shock or when you feel the loss of something, especially monetary stuff, or you lose the business, or if you start thinking about how will I make all this back again,
Hmm.
or how do I get back to this place, it can become very overwhelming, especially if you've lost a lot. Right? It can be
Wow.
extremely overwhelming, right? It can really make it feel impossible,
Yeah.
right? And then you start thinking, what is the
What's the
value of even trying,
yeah,
right?
what's the point?
So, what you would do, and what I did, was first of all, I extracted myself out of the situation physically, right? From a
Okay.
city
Okay.
that was now contributing negatively to my emotions.
Right.
Right. So one doesn't have to do that. You could leave the neighborhood, for example.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
But that experience helps. You took some action there. You moved out of that place at least. Okay. What else?
Yeah. And I started doing little things like, so for example, I said I started directing my energy towards the company I'd set up in India.
Yeah.
So I told myself that now instead of going out at night and partying with friends to try to drown my sorrows, I'm going to spend my evening, because in the India it was morning,
Right.
on chat with them 3-4 hours. So small steps, right? Then I moved to New York. Okay, let me try to get the first client for the company in India so we can develop some software for them and make some money.
Right.
So one small step at a time. And as some of these steps go right, I think it starts to build that confidence again, and you get busier and you get involved and you get passionate and you start feeling that energy again.
So I'm going to recap that. Very important. You said, first of all, don't focus on how am I going to get all that back?
Remaking it.
Because if you would, then it would seem impossible because it was so much that I had lost.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Instead, what you did was step one, you took accountability by shifting out of that place physically. That helped you. Second, you channeled that energy into doing some small steps. Instead of thinking of something just big, took some small action and focused on that. And that helped you move on. Wow, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that shifts your frequency. Yeah. So once you did that, how fast were you able to, let's say, bounce back, if I may ask?
Yeah, so after that, so let's say that was 2000. Yeah, within 6 months to a year, we were hitting the ball out of the park.
Oh.
We had a company that was growing. By 2006, we had raised a massive round of capital, which was one of the largest in India.
How much at that
So
time?
I think at that time, it was like 10, $12 million. So today it would be equivalent to $100 million raise, right?
Wow.
And I was being, because it was tech, it was new. I was being touted as the tech whiz kid of India. I was being written about. I think all of it took like from 2002 to 2004.
Wow.
Wow.
So just
Yeah.
that,
To
those two small things, you shifting out of that place and you taking small actions, diverting your energy from party to India chatting helped you.
I took what I was being consumed by. Oh, I screwed up. I'm angry. Oh, why did this happen to me? And blah blah blah. To
Hmm.
being consumed by how big and how fast can we build something epic,
Wow.
Wow.
right? So that's quite a big shift.
So in 1 year, that got to like $10 million. But then you said, so if I may once again ask, during that 1 year, what were those couple of positive emotions that helped you make it bigger? And because once it grows, right? So what were those couple of emotions and frequencies that really made you go stronger in that stride when you were on the uphill?
Yeah, I think it was really a sense of possibilities. It was a
Wow.
sense of uh, optimism, of uh, being able to achieve my dreams, building something exciting. Tech was just happening. Consumer tech was just taking shape in India, although there weren't so many internet users. Just enjoying the process of building, right?
Wow.
Just having fun and
Wow.
feeling good about myself, feeling confident, being celebrated by friends, family, media, right? So it just felt like I could do no wrong at that time,
Hmm.
and it felt great to
Wow.
be somewhat celebrated at that age and to be able to build something that others
Wow.
had not thought of.
When that happened, and you said there was a second downfall,
Yeah.
you said
So
it hit you hard a second time. I'm surprised. Can you explain that?
yeah. So by 2007, we had raised money. I was building three companies at the same time. Makan.com, Moj Mobile, Shadi.com. We had raised capital everywhere. And in 2008, mid 2008, based on our expansion plans, we had now signed a term sheet to raise $25 million, which would have been the biggest round of that time, right, in new tech startups. And everything was set. And so we did all our hiring accordingly. We scaled accordingly because the money was expected to come in 2 months.
Right.
Right? Because documentation was going on, diligence was done. There was no reason to think that wouldn't happen. But then in September, Lehman Brothers happened,
Yeah.
Right.
right? And so, nothing we could do about it. But the VCs were supposed to invest. They were American VCs. I mean, my team who used to work with me then will still tell you, right, that they used to call the bank every day saying, has the money come in, has the wire come in, has the wire. Those days SMSs alerts weren't that common. And after a week or 10 days, we found out that the money was never going to come in. So they weren't going to honor the contract,
Right.
because the world had changed with Lehman.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a big downfall then.
It was like the world is ending. Downfall छोड़ दो कि hindsight में लगता है downfall था, but if you go back and read the
In that
material
moment,
that was
when you lived
published
it.
and the news stories
Yeah.
were published during those times, it was touted as the end of the world as we know it. Right? It was touted as the beginning of the end of America.
What do you mean by it hit you hard at that time? Emotionally, what did it do to you? What did you do at that time?
Firstly, to be honest with you, it did not hit me emotionally for some time
Wow.
Interesting.
because I had a job to do. Right? I had a lot of people dependent on me.
Yeah.
Mm.
It was very clear that I was trying to salvage everything first, right?
Right.
It was very clear that we would struggle to make salaries with this situation. So we'd have to rethink our entire structure and strategy. And we had limited time. I didn't even want to fire people without any runway, right? So I was
Mm.
very clear that people need to land on their feet. We need to give them at least 6 month compensation. We need to make sure that whoever's laid off, we help them find a job. So there was a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
Right? There was a lot of work to be done. So I immersed myself for the next 6 months, making, and even today, people who are with us then will tell you that one of the uh, things that we did was that we did everything with utmost respect and dignity to every last person affected. We created a team of people who would outplace people who were affected. We ensured that everybody got a 6 month paycheck, right?
Wow.
Whatever that meant. And so I was very engrossed with making sure that happens, and
My
there is
question is
no
why?
losing.
That was the time when a lot of companies were disowning people, firing was happening. It was
Yeah.
justified, right? Like if there was any time to be justified about firing, it was that time.
It was just a sense of responsibility or duty. And, I'll tell you some one or two stories, right? When I first moved to India, when I moved back in 2000, when I started spending time here, I moved back permanently in 2004, but between 2002 and 4, I spent half my time here. We used to work from a small hole in the wall in the middle of Chira Bazaar, and there was a bhais ka tabela. We had to step over shit to get to our office. Right?
Hmm.
There used to be a chai wala outside, Tambi we used to call him. He used to wear fatawa shorts, right? Young teenager boy, and banyan, and used to serve us chai every day. In a couple of years, when we made it and we built a nice fancy office in Worli and in Tardeo, when we moved, I asked him, I said, Dare, tu kya kar raha hai? He said, kya karunga, mera matlab to yahi life. I said, no, you come with me, right? And he then became an engineer,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So this is just one story I'm telling you, but there are many stories like that.
But what makes you do
Right.
that? Then, Anupam, that's my question. What is it about your belief? What do you believe that made you in that moment when it was the hardest time to keep people, you decided to keep them for 6 months? What did you believe that made you do that? How did you justify that to yourself, to people whom you owed money to, or to yourself?
इतना सोचा नहीं था यार. To be honest with you, I could give you some story about higher moral ground and all that.
उसको
But
कैसा
the
नहीं सोचा?
truth is that I
Being
grew up,
responsible.
my
I
my
think being
dad and my
responsible.
mom have instilled a very strong sense of duty. So you could just call it conditioning.
Wow.
You could just call it conditioning. Like my dad used to always say, I've seen him do business, right? He used to never have contracts. He used to say, एक बार ज़बान दे दी तो फिर ज़बान दे दी, right?
Got it.
And my mom, she was not as happy and jovial as my dad in terms of her personality, but a sense of duty towards anyone and everyone was incredible. Right? She was the go-to person in the extended family. Anything happens, you go to my mom. Right?
Wow.
She will fix it.
So if I may,
So-
I may be wrong, but I'm reading into my own understanding of in those times what you did.
Yeah.
I believe one of the things that you also had in your values, you truly cared for people. It was not just business. It was not just pure money. Would I be correct to say you did care? What happened?
Yeah, I
to
mean,
these people?
I had, we skipped over one part, but I had been laid off in my job in the US
Okay.
when I had lost it all the first time, right?
Ah,
Yeah, so I had been laid off also. So I knew what it means and what one goes through. और हमारा layoff ऐसा था ना कि that in the US, the way they lay you off is you take a box, you put your stuff, and you walk out within 1 hour.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right? It is the most demeaning
Yeah.
feeling, humiliation, and it's a kick to your gut, basically, right? And so I don't know if I processed it consciously, but I'm sure that had a big part to play. That
Wow.
Of course.
the least we can do is give people their dignity. We may not be able to, I don't have the money, I can't employ you, right? What am I going to do? But you deserve dignity, right?
Wow. Amazing. You
So-
got that. That's what I wanted to know. What did you
Yeah.
feel? What did you believe? You believed that people deserve that little bit of dignity, even though we can't keep them for too long. But what can I do to make them feel at least that sense of respect and dignity while I'm letting them go? Wow.
Yeah. So when I think about myself, now that you mention it, I'm a really hard ass during good times. But
Really?
but I'm an angel during bad times.
Ah, wow.
So whether it was the floods in 2006 when people couldn't go home for 3-4 days, right? I went and stayed with them in the office. Whether it was COVID when we set up a 24/7 call helpline with people manning it all over the country. What ended up happening, it was set up to help our employees get medicine and save their lives. We suddenly became a helpline for the entire country. Because now if somebody who's not an employee calls, you can't say no for help, right?
Wow. Serving.
So, when things go bad, I think, you have to do something.
Now I understand what sailed you through and what frequencies got you. So after that period, that was the downfall, obviously. Now I understand what got you through that, because it would be so difficult to remain in the pit while you're helping and serving and thinking about so many people's dignity. It's difficult during that time to feel bad so much about yourself because you were hardly focused on
Exactly. So that's exactly what I said. I had no emotion for the next 6 months.
Right.
But then after that, it was quite a bit of a turmoil, right? When the dust settled, we were back to running the company. Everything had kind of become smaller, and I think it was 2009, 10. And that's when sort of, I
How
was
long was that
perhaps the
phase?
lowest in my life.
How long was
So
that
I think it
phase?
took us till about 2009 and to fix things when I was just obsessed with doing stuff. I think the next thing that the downtime that, uh, that took a couple of years.
2 years.
It took more than that actually. That really, because I told you, right, my personality changed. I became cautious. And when I look back, I wish I had a mentor, or I wish there was more such stuff available online, or maybe
Why?
I should have seeked out somebody. It would have accelerated my recovery.
Okay, I get that. Now
It might have, right? When I look back, I think I lost a few years there, right? What should have taken maybe 6 months to a year took me, good 3-4 years, right?
Yes.
So I lost a lot of time. I didn't have maybe the right people around me. I don't know what it was. I don't want to blame anybody else. I'd rather say I maybe didn't seek out the right.
So I'm sorry if I'm asking you a personal question, but did this time, this low phase, the way you felt about yourself, and did it impact family life in the way you were as a husband, as a father, as a friend?
I was great. I was in great shape back in 2011. So it wasn't that long. It's a year and a half.
Okay.
It just felt like
A year
a
and a
lot
half.
longer.
Yeah.
But a year and a half, 2 years, right?
Okay.
So I had to clear debts off and all of that. And this will go back to what I told you earlier, would be to tell people that, look, I can't pay you.
Yeah.
Nobody could have done anything because the
True.
times were like that. Right?
It was justified.
But remember what I just told you about what my dad said.
Zaban
Ek
de
bar
di.
zaban de di. So I couldn't move away from that. So I had, and people were, it's very interesting how we are as human beings. People who I owed money to, some people, because I kept telling them that I will pay you, just be patient. They used to treat me like shit. But if there were people who told them, what are you talking about? Get away from here, or, नहीं होगा.
देता जो करना है कर ले. हाँ.
हाँ, उनको they had nothing to say to. Right? तो उनका भी गुस्सा मेरे ऊपर निकालते थे, but I should take it because I felt that I still owe you.
So coming back to that question, how did that impact your family as a person? Or you as a family person, you as a friend in your personal life?
So as a friend, I think it was great. I became more available.
दुख के टाइम पे दोस्त सारे मिल जाते हैं.
Exactly. So वो सच है, दुनिया का सच है. Right.
And as a husband, as a father?
I wasn't married then, so it didn't matter that much, right? As I think I became a little distant from my immediate family, from my parents, because I didn't want to expose my vulnerabilities. And every time I found myself with them, I found myself starting to cry and break down, right? And I just felt too heavy. And I didn't want them to worry about me, right? So I just kind of became physically distant somewhat.
So was there anybody you confided with, cried with, vulnerable with?
No, that was the hard part. No, I actually wasn't, right? Because I felt like I had to put up this brave front, fake it till you make it kind of thing. And, if I give out this negative stuff, then, people will, think negative and they'll think I'm not worth it. And so I had to put this brave front out there. And, like I said, I always knew in the long term I'll succeed. So there was an underlying optimism, although day to day was tough.
Right.
But, I kind of had a sense that I'll make it back.
Yeah. But thank you, Anupam,
So we
for
can
being
continue.
so open and vulnerable, because this is going to help
Yeah,
so many people. You have no idea. Because people have this
yeah,
illusion that
Yeah.
someone like you, oh, you've gone through cakewalk. और अरे इनके
yeah.
लिए एक किस्मत का कुछ एक शादी.com आया एंड बस हो गई, निकल पड़ी गाड़ी, आज तो 200-400 करोड़ में घूमते हैं, इनको कहाँ फर्क पड़ता. But you've gone through 2 downfalls. So
So
what,
that's the reason I talk openly about my mental health issues as well.
that's one of the reasons I chose you first to be part of this podcast. Thank you. So people who are listening to this and understanding from your experience how you remain in those 3 years, sorry, 1.5 year now that you said, it felt longer. Would you recommend them to do what you did, which was, in a way, if I may use the word, fake optimism versus approaching somebody, being vulnerable, maybe to your parents, maybe to a friend?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend that at
Oh,
all.
he's saying now, I wish he had a mentor that time.
Yeah, yeah. And then I did actually seek out. So what I did in 2011 when things, so 2009 and से मुझे लगा अभी ठीक हो जाएगा. Things were just getting worse and worse and worse, right? I was in a downward spiral.
Right.
So 2010 end, I was finding it really. I didn't want to burden my sisters who love me to death, but I just felt like, what do I say? I mean, what are they going to do? I mean, what can I tell my parents? So, and I felt like I needed help. So I did turn to a therapist, and I see him till today.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Till today.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I mean, it's not
interesting
always
question.
on.
Why?
It's not always on. So we're on for a few months, and then, but earlier for a few years it was always on, and then now we do like a few months off, a few months on, a few months.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Wow.
So did
Yeah.
that help in the uphill happening again?
Yeah,
phase?
absolutely, absolutely. It changed everything for me, right? I mean, I started. I could unbundle my thoughts. I could start to see the reasons and the patterns. One asks themselves, right, after you had a couple of highs and then crashes, there's something you're doing, right? That's not, you're not being, there's something happening here that this is on its way to becoming a pattern,
Correct.
right? So what do? Are you making bad decisions, and what's causing those bad decisions? Or so I had to start unpacking all of that. Now, obviously, you can't. I'm great at doing it for somebody else, right? As we all are, but we're terrible at doing it for ourselves because our egos get in the way, right?
Yep.
So it became evident I needed this guy, and he was so amazing that
India
just
or
helped me.
outside?
India.
India.
So just unpacked it all. So I became a better decision maker. I cut off partying from my life. All of these things, right? And so slowly but steadily, I started, building the real foundations on which I stand today. Right? Earlier, it was more of steamrolling outcomes or aggression, or so determined that it happens, but it doesn't sustain. Right? Today, I feel like the experiences have built such strong foundations that.
Explain that foundation. That's the foundation I want people to learn from you, because I think people miss that foundation, and that's why the success comes for a fleeting moment.
I often say that success builds ego and failure builds character.
Wow.
That character is foundation, right?
Okay.
So what I mean is, it teaches you mental models, right? In terms of, it shapes your worldview. It teaches you to become a better judge of people.
Right.
Right. You get values and principles that you start adhering to, that work for you and that stay solid, right? Earlier, you just switch things, your beliefs, everything in a whim or a fancy, depending on where the opportunity is.
Right.
Now, all these things start to solidify, right?
So give me 3 points as an example of, just to help people a little more specific with this, values, principles, beliefs. You said perfect words what we were looking for.
Yeah.
What is this character? What is this, if I may use the word Anupam 3.0, new character today? If you had to define that in 3 points, like, okay, this is the value, this is the principle, this is the belief that today's Anupam 3.0 is compared to what he was, what would those 3 points be?
Yeah. So, what I have learned, right, over this time my biggest strength is perseverance,
Hmm.
right? And I have deep conviction about that, right? So that means nothing really shakes me in the sense I know that, I will persevere.
Right.
I may not be the strongest, I may not be the, uh, most smartest, but I will persevere more than anybody else will.
Interesting.
Right.
And what's your biggest
So my biggest weakness used to be my ego, which I have, with the help of my therapist, introspection, and various other things, been able. I didn't even know it was that. So been able to break it down and address it.
So perseverance
But
was one
yeah,
that you built with over a
perseverance.
period of time.
Yeah, which I built with time. So that is one for sure. Anything is really possible, right? That I still
That's crazy.
live. I still live with a sense of possibilities.
Wow.
I don't live with a sense of doors closing. I live with a sense of so many doors to still open.
कुछ ना कुछ तो हो जाएगा.
Absolutely.
So many doors left to open. There's
Wow.
so much to learn, so
What
much
a
to
metaphor.
do, so much to do. Right.
Wow.
So I think that sense of possibilities, I think, still kind of stays with me, right? And I think there is, and this has helped with my child coming into my life. When you are a child, I remember when I was a little kid, I saw a snail for the first time. A snail. I don't remember how long it was. It's very small, but I feel like I must have looked at it for hours. Maybe it was only 20, 30 minutes. But it just felt that the child time goes a lot slower, right? When I think back, so there was a sense of wonder, right, about everything, about every little thing, right? And as you get older, your sense of wonder goes away, right? But and it's kind of sad, because if you think about it, the universe is still such a fascinating place. And I think when you have a child, right, through the child's eyes, your sense of wonder comes back a little.
Interesting.
So I try to hold on to that sense of wonder. It's hard, but I try to keep it and just feel amazed about the world. Like every day in the morning, I go up on. So I live in a house which has a large terrace. Okay, that's another thing I manifested. And that's a story on itself, now that we're talking about it.
Wow.
I mean, I could tell you so many things. Even Shark Tank, I manifested in a way. I could tell you about that.
Wow.
But so, for example, the house story and the Shark Tank story are quite interesting.
Yeah, please, we'd love to know.
But so I go out every morning on my terrace. I look to the sky, right? Because it's open to sky, right? And I spend 5 minutes with a sense of wonder, and it's always a great feeling.
So one crazy question, right? This is specifically, I'm talking about those people who are listening to you right now, and you've gone through two great downfalls, each being in magnitudes of crores of numbers, which for common people, it's not even, we can't even fathom sometimes that kind of loss. And when people go through even small losses of a few lakhs or lose a house to a home loan, people go through emotions of committing suicide. Life is nothing. Kuch nahi bacha zindagi mein. What stopped you? Because see, your numbers were not small, Anupam, by any means, right? Yeah. I mean, your achievements were great, but so were the failures. यहाँ पे लोग छोटा मोटा lose करके suicidal हो जाते हैं. I'm really trying to understand, what was your belief that kept you going during that time? Why didn't you
why I didn't kill myself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm being very honest about that question. Why didn't you have those thoughts के यार छोड़ो यार ये सब खत्म कर देते हैं, let's go. फिर कौन मांगेगा पैसा?
The only real thing you know is life. The only thing you know is life. You know nothing beyond, before, after. Everything you're experiencing is through your life. It's the most precious thing you've been given, right?
Wow.
You are you because of you.
Yeah.
How can you even contemplate giving it up? No chance. हाँ, मेरे को दूसरों को मारने का ख्याल आता है. take my own life, I never think about it.
Wow,
Ever.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
But thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It helps people to be
Yeah.
able to believe what you believe that अगर बनना है अनुपम जैसा तो पहले ये बिलीफ ले लो कि भाई ये तो ख्याल सोचना ही नहीं कि मैं खुद को कैसे कुछ कर सकता
Bounce back.
अभी यार आप क्या लेके आए थे यार? I mean, people, leaving aside, there are people who are mentally disturbed, and I cannot even begin to imagine or understand what somebody goes through who takes their own life, right? It
हूँ.
must be something really, matlab, your mind, I've had mental health issues, so I know sometimes you don't have control, and maybe they do it because they
Right.
don't have control. But uh, but I would just say, if you are having those thoughts, think again from a different standpoint. And the standpoint is that, what are the chances that you were born in this world?
Hmm.
You had to fight, millions of other competitors to, get to the egg, right?
True.
To fertilize an egg. Right? You fought that fight without even
True.
realizing. And
Yeah.
you were the winner,
Yeah.
right? That was your biggest lottery, right? And now why would you just give it up, right?
Yeah, true. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you. So now that we've spoken about so many of these emotions and beliefs, I've extracted a lot of this. And what I'd love to now know is 3 or 4 of those big manifestations which even when you look back, you're like, yaar, ye kaise ho gaya?
जैसे आप बोले अभी, you said your terrace house, your shark.
Yeah. It's
I'd
very,
love to
very
know those
interesting.
stories.
And my whole life, right? Whatever bad times I might have been through, but एक माँ बाप का आशीर्वाद है या क्या है, बट मेरा लास्ट मिनट पे कुछ ना कुछ हो ही आता है.
Wow.
That's a good belief.
Right? Whether I believe in it, I was very clear that I wanted to buy. I wanted to be near my parents, but I didn't want to live with them. क्योंकि इतने साल बाहर रह के अन्यों की रहेंगे तो प्यार में भी खोट ही आएगी.
मुश्किल
And at this, and at the same time, बहुत दूर रहेंगे तो भी प्रॉब्लम है, because then I won't be able to meet as often, right?
बिल्कुल.
तो मुझे 4-5 बिल्डिंग की दूरी में, which is Cuff Parade. I don't know if you're familiar with Mumbai Cuff
Yes.
Parade,
Yes.
but there are about 15-20 buildings here, and only about 7 or 8 of them have penthouse terrace flats with large open to air terrace. So I called a broker. I said that these are my requirements. He said, "What?" He said, "There are only like so many flats in this
Huh.
area. The chances of somebody selling them and you buying them are next to like nil, right?" So I said, "यार उससे तेरे को कोई मतलब नहीं, तू जा and you figure it out, right? I'll pay you." So he came to me after a couple of months. He said, "Oh, this lady in this building, she is considering selling." I said, "You just go and figure it out." So then he came back to me after a week. Sadly, he said, "No, she's changed her mind." I said, "Bro, that means she's confused."
Hmm. Interesting belief. If somebody doesn't want to sell, they're confused. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. She said yes once. So I said, "You take money from me upfront, but you go there every week, right? And keep me updated." Uh, so after a few weeks, he came to me and he said, "She's agreed, but this is going to be the price." I said, "Don't even try to negotiate 1 cent. Close it within the next couple of days." Because the price was very fair. She maybe thought she was being pricey, but it was actually very fair relative to market.
Hmm.
It just so happened that the rental ended at the same time that I wanted the flat.
Wow.
So she said, "Now, instead of going and renting it again, this guy's after me. Let's do it." Done. I got the flat of my dreams. Exactly what I wanted. Large, 1,600 square foot terrace, 2 levels, open to sky, penthouse.
Mumbai.
So I mean, close to my parents. That's Mumbai में तो मिल ही जाता.
True.
Within a radius of 4-5 buildings, right? The
Wow.
chances of that were dismal. So that's one interesting aspect. The other is Shark Tank, right? So after I became an angel investor also in 2011, 2012, every couple of years, and Shark Tank as a show had become popular in the UK and US. In the UK, it used to be called Dragon's Den.
Yes, Dragon's Den.
In 2010 onwards,
I saw almost all
it
the
was
episodes.
Yeah, it was gaining notoriety, right? So from 2014-15 onwards, every couple of years, somebody used to come to me with a rip-off of the show, not the original format. हम इंडिया में बना रहे हैं. Will you, because I was a very well-known angel by then,
Angel.
investor.
Yes.
Will you come on? Will you be on the show? So I would always ask original format, and they would say no. I would say, "Acha." I would always tell them, I'll come, but I'll only come as a guest for 1 or 2 episodes.
Mm.
Why? Because I knew eventually the original Shark Tank would come, and I didn't want. So I was trying to get the rights for the original Shark Tank, which were not available. I think Ronnie Screwvala had them for a few years, but he's not doing anything with them. And I knew that, chalo, मैं नहीं तो और कोई लेके आएगा. But if I'm already doing some other show,
Category law.
तो फिर कैसे होगा?
then I won't be able. ये कैसे हो? So I
Category.
never committed to anyone until in 2020, the original guys came. And I visualized it very clearly. They came to my house. They said, we want to do it. I told them, मैं audition नहीं करता हूँ. My reputation precedes me. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I asked them only 2 questions. Are you going to do it in Hindi or English? They said Hindi. I said, general entertainment channel or business channel? They said, general entertainment channel. I said, fantastic. Then we will reach everybody in the country. That's what I want to do. Let's inspire the nation. Right. And I said yes to them. And Shark Tank happened.
Amazing.
So-
Amazing. This
so
is
yeah,
pure
so
manifestation.
clarity,
This is clarity.
clarity.
Like you didn't let go of it.
Clarity.
I mean,
Yeah, there are some
but
things
Kenny-
I've had such deep conviction of. Everything else in my life, I'm very confused. But there are 3-4 things like Boston College or starting a company or Shark Tank or my home that I bought in Cuffbreak. I had such deep conviction,
Wow.
right? And I think maybe manifestation comes from there.
Yeah.
That you can't just bullshit yourself into things happening,
True.
but you have to believe it in your bones and then it happens.
That's
Yeah.
true. 100%.
Maybe that's what it is.
You're on the dot. You're actually saying things which are written in my book. It's like on the dot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like you're reading my mind right now. Is there any such story in your personal life? I don't know, something related to your wife, your children.
Yeah, it's related to my wife. Yeah, believe it or not, the first time I saw her, I told my friend, I'm going to marry this girl.
Did you know her? She knew you, or you just saw her?
First time he saw her.
Can I ask
And
where?
then it was in Bombay. It was
I'd
at
like
some
to
party.
visualize that moment. Where were you? What was
Yeah,
she doing?
no, it was at some party, I think. And we had some common friends. So I think we were introduced just fleetingly.
Okay.
Okay, she was a very popular, very famous Indian model, and she had very great reputation that preceded her. So I knew of her, but not enough, and so we got fleetingly introduced, and told one of my friends. But interestingly, yeah, we got married 7-8 years after we met.
Wow.
Oh my God.
So we actually got engaged the year after, but then
Okay.
as
Okay.
life would have it, we went our separate ways, but then we came back together.
Wow. So when you told your friend, I'm going to marry this girl, what was his reaction?
He was like, yeah, and how many others, right? So usual
You're in the line.
yeah,
Typical boys.
typical boys, right? So, but yeah, I think maybe while just talking to you, I sort of question comes to my mind, right? All these things that we spoke about manifesting, I believed deep conviction in my bones,
True.
right? But that actually tells me something else. Can you really manifest, or is it just that sometimes you just believe based on things you have no control over, and then it ends up manifesting?
Yeah, may I
I'm
answer
not
that?
sure. Yeah. That's the question.
It's a little of both. It's a little of both. Sometimes we do believe in our bones and that does manifest. It literally does things around you to get things in your favor. And you've experienced enough of that.
Yeah.
There are some times when we are not manifesting, we just believe it because we don't know. Some people call it destiny, some people call it something else, but it's meant to happen. Sometimes we call it, but it's a little of both. Instead of having that eternal debate of are we manifestors or are we just driven by destiny, I love to call it as what my mentor taught me is a co-creator.
Interesting.
So we
I
are
like that
co-creators
word.
with the universe, where there are times the God, Bhagwan bolo, God bolo, I like to call it universe, plays a role, but there's a part
Oh,
we
that's
play as
wonderful.
well.
I call it universe as well. When
Yeah,
people say, "Do you believe in God?" I say, I don't, but don't tell him that, because I do believe in the universe.
So I believe universe plays a role, but that so do we. We can't do everything on our own. We need a little bit of the universe, but the universe can't do it on its own. The universe needs a little bit of our contribution to make things happen in our life. Yeah.
You both spoke.
Yeah. So, I have a question, right? If we've spoken about manifestation and law of attraction from the lens of uh, material success,
Sure.
largely.
Sure. Yes.
But what about things like happiness or health?
Yeah.
Right? How does one, I mean, so many people are struggling with all kinds of maladies in the world, right?
Yeah.
How do you manifest good health? How do you manifest a good physical and mental health?
I'll answer that. So first is this whole manifestation practice is about striving towards understanding our own emotions, being aware and working towards the regulation of it. So to give you an example, on the 1st of January, the whole world, not India, but the whole world practices a ritual called New Year resolution, which we all know what happens by the 2nd of January, for some people by the 5th of January. So we also do a program called the Best Year Ever on the 1st of January for our community. But that day, we do not do goal setting. We do not do New Year resolutions. We say, today...
That day you work on curing your hangover.
I hope so. If you had a great party last night. His joy is always with him. So what we work on that day is, since you asked that question of happiness, is let us choose emotions that you will live consciously for the rest of the year as a choice. And let us choose emotions that you will consciously avoid throughout the year as a choice.
Is it as simple as that? I mean, yes.
No.
Once you say it, maybe.
No. There's a lot of work to it. There is work to it. There's work to it. Like you said, your therapy didn't happen in a conversation. It took time. So there is work. Our whole perspective here is, let's learn before it's so late that we then need medication, either mental or physical. Just the way in the physical health, we say you better exercise before it gets to it, or before it gets to you. So we're saying, let's work towards that, not mental only wellness, but mental strength. So then it's easy for you to go through those breakdowns when they happen, because they're going to happen anyway. And that's where focusing on that spiritual, if I may use the word spiritual, stability. I like to use practical spirituality as a word rather than spirituality as a monk or religion. But being able to be that stability inside, that I can work towards my material reality and yet not get affected by it.
Right. Yeah. Detachment, or I think our religious, not religious, but our texts. What do we call them? Our
scriptures.
Maybe scriptures. Even the Bhagavad Gita maybe has something to say about detached work, right?
Yes.
So I don't remember the lessons from Bhagavad Gita, but does it talk about manifestation at all?
Yes. You will be surprised to know that my book, which I have written, you'll be happy to know, one of the reasons my book became a national bestseller is because I took scriptures from Bhagavad Gita, I took shlokas from there, and I compared it with quantum physics written in
physics. Wow.
And
you studied quantum physics?
Yes, sir. So I got proof that what is written in quantum physics is not similar to Bhagavad Gita. It is the same. And I took shlokas from here and I took principles from here and I compared it. And I gave that proof in the first chapter of the book.
Wow. Are you a physicist by background?
No, I'm not a physicist. I'm just an enthusiast of physics. That's it. But
you can't just read quantum physics and understand it.
It's been 20 years I've been reading it.
He's been reading it.
Yeah.
This is our book. I
will send it to you.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example and you'll love to hear it because this part of Bhagavad Gita everybody knows and physics as well. So in physics, we just spoke about the law of conservation, right? That you can't create, you can't destroy, you can only transform from one form to another form. Right. The exact same thing is written in Bhagavad Gita, where it says that you are not body, you are soul. You are not matter, you are energy. You cannot be created, you cannot be destroyed, you cannot take birth, you cannot die. You can only transform from one form to another form, which means you can only take life from one body to another body. These are word by word same. And if you translate them back to Hindi or English, you'll find it's quantum physics. Total amount of energy in the universe is always constant. All the scriptures say there is only one God. Quantum physics says every human being has so much energy within them that it's equal to the energy of the whole universe. In Bhagavad Gita, it says, भगवान आपके अंदर भी मेरे अंदर भी है सबके अंदर भगवान है द अमाउंट ऑफ एनर्जी इनसाइड यू कण कण में भगवान आपके अंदर भी उतना ही भगवान है मेरे अंदर भी उतना ही भगवान है क्वांटम फिजिक्स सेज देयर इज एनर्जी इनसाइड यू व्हिच इज इक्विवेलेंट टू द एनर्जी ऑफ द होल यूनिवर्स हेंस एटम बॉम्ब वाज इन्वेंटेड so an atom is if you look at the size of an atom it's nothing but if you could explore that atom it's the energy that exists in an atom is so huge. And then, unfortunately, scientists discovered nuclear physics, and then they blasted nuclear bombs and stuff like that. But it all comes from the same principle that every cell of your body has the equivalent of the universal energy. We're all connected at the energy level.
That's going to take me some energy to process that thought.
I'd love to have more time with you to share more with you later. Have you heard about Kundalini awakening in India?
I've heard about it, but I don't know enough about
it. Okay. We've scientifically discovered techniques of meditation that can give you what is called in Hindi is Kundalini awakening. In science, in quantum physics, is called as pineal gland activation.
Yeah, pineal gland activation, right. Absolutely. Yeah. I know pineal gland activation.
So there's a part in your brain, if you know how to activate that in the right way, in 45 minutes, you'll have a Kundalini experience and you'll have mystical experience that you've never had before. You'll have tears in your eyes. So I would love to have that experience with you someday.
Yeah, where do you live?
I live in Pune.
We live in Pune,
but we do this
so if you're coming to as well. If you're coming to Mumbai, let me know. We'll happily
love to
get together. I'm shooting for the next couple of months.
Yep.
So if you happen to be here on the weekend, please come to the Shark Tank sets. We can certainly meet. Do you think, just one last question I had.
Please do.
It's still something I'm processing. But what are sort of, a lot of people these days are talking about manifesting. Right?
Sure.
And like I said, it's become common jargon and language for the Gen Z. But my sense is 99% of them have no idea what they're talking about when they say manifest.
They don't.
Right?
Yep.
So what are there like some common do's or don't do's, right?
Yes,
not to do. What forget the do's, what are not to do's, right? I'm just wondering.
So I'll give you an example. In the surface level of manifestation, they'll always talk about techniques, affirmations, visualization, gratitude, things like that, right? But one of the reasons it will not work as a don't do is when I spoke about those 4 buttons of FTBA, when people have misalignment in their FTBA, they can do all the affirmations in the world, nothing's going to manifest. An example of that would be, if I feel sorry about myself all the time and I'm going for an interview at an action level, that action is not supported by the right emotion. You can do all the affirmations sitting there saying, I've got my job, I've got my job, I've got my job. But if you're not feeling that conviction as what you said at the belief level, it doesn't manifest. So
but then how do you make yourself, so just break that down for me. Feelings, thoughts, belief, and action.
Yes.
Can you use an example and tell me which feeling should trigger what thought to what belief and action, and how do you cultivate that?
Sure.
So let's use the same job example.
Done. So in my book, incidentally, I wrote about a guy who came to me and he was not able to manifest a job for more than a few months. He gave dozen interviews, it was not happening, even though he was out of Infosys, which had high value, but he was not manifesting a job. So I made him write down by actually breaking it down. I did the breakdown with him about asking him, 1 month before you left the job, what were the emotions that you think have had 1 month before that triggered the idea of even leaving a job a month later? And when I made him write down the feelings that he had a month ago and the thoughts that he had about the company, about the boss, the beliefs that he had about himself, about the environment, things like, yahan to bahut politics hota hai, this company mein yahan pe kaam karke kuch fayda nahi hai, started feeling
that
he
project
started
मेरे काम
feeling
का नहीं
ये
है.
project मेरे काम का नहीं. He started feeling arrogant about himself that I can do anything. When he
Mhm.
put down all of that, he could track back to that moment when it collected together as an FTBA and got to a decision that said, screw it, I'm leaving this company.
Mhm.
And then I made him write down and break down that after you left your company, what was your continuous FTBA for the next 1 month while you were doing that interview? And when I made him write this down on paper, I asked him, I said, the frequency that made you leave your job is getting worse even after you've left your job. How can the same frequency help you get a job?
Yeah.
It's not technically possible to dial 93.5 and attract 101.1. It's not.
So how did he rewire that and get a
Yeah.
job?
So I sat with him and we said, okay, consider this for a minute, the way you did it, by the way, that if next 2 weeks from now, Monday, I've got my job. I asked him, I said, tell me, what would you
Start
feel?
with the end.
Start with the end in mind. Tell me, what would you feel?
Yeah.
He said, happy. I said, no, hold on. Go to that moment. Tell me, what would you feel from the morning till evening? He wrote down 5-6 emotions: satisfied, relieved, thankful. Finally, I got the job. I said, okay, what would you think on that day? What would you believe on that day? He said, I would believe that there's delay,
Grateful.
but there is success. I said, okay, write that down. I said, what action would you take that day? He said, I'd buy a new shirt. I'd go to the temple. I'd prepare for my papers. I'll prepare my new documents to make sure that I'm perfect in the new company. I said, okay, great. Write this whole thing down. And then I made him close his eyes and I said, now I want you to actually feel these emotions by bringing it from your past, because you've obviously felt happy in your past. It's not like you've not felt happy. So I made him, through a process that I do, feel those emotions now, think those thoughts now by saying those thoughts, which he wrote, by the way. I made him believe those things by repeating those beliefs now. And I said, okay, now open your eyes. And the first thing I want you to do is go out from here, buy that favorite shirt that you would want to buy, the favorite color for that job. Go to the temple and say thank you as if you've already got the job. Plan the day that you would have that party and plan the place where you would have that party and choose that restaurant and tentatively go to that restaurant and decide, okay, this is the place I'm going to celebrate. This is the table I'm going to book. He did that. True story, Anupam. It's in the book. 1 week he got a job.
Yeah.
And he uses manifestation to the date where in our life also, whenever anything goes wrong, we take a pen, paper and we say, okay, what did we feel 10 days ago that created this havoc? This cannot be happening on its own. I did something 10 days ago, 20 days ago, 1 month ago. We break it down. Okay, that's what happened.
So you can just manifest each other being happy with each other, so you never fight with each other.
Oh, no, we fight, but we know how to manage that frequency now. But I'll give you a great example of manifestation.
We bounce back
We bounce back very fast, but I'll give you a great example of manifestation. We manifested each other as a relationship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
We
how
met
did
in a
that happen?
manifestation workshop.
Oh, wow. How about
So last month, I'll tell you the last example. Last month, I was at 5 crores a month revenue. And then we did some manifestation techniques. I was in US doing some meditations. For 15 days, I was out of town. In that 15 days, we doubled our turnover. We made it 10 crores in 1 month with 80% profit.
Wow. I
don't have a sales team, Anupam. I don't have a sales
team.
I'm going to come and clear. I'm going to clear my calendar. You come and do some manifestation.
I'm happy to. I can't give you names, but there is a reason why a national cricket player right now works with me on manifestation every morning.
That's amazing.
Because he knows what a century is worth when he's in the right frequency.
There is a Bollywood.
Chalo bhai, mera bhi double karao revenue. Good, great talking to you guys, man.
Yeah.
Great talking to you, Anupam.
I learned a lot today.
Hey, did you love that interview? I absolutely loved it. So much to learn from Anupam Mittal. The best part is now you understand that his millionaire lifestyle comes from his millionaire mindset. Make sense? So if you're ready to continue your learning, the first thing I want you to do as an assignment is click on the subscribe button and hit the bell icon after that, because in future when we bring more such manifestation case studies for you, you definitely get a notification. Come on, jaldi karo, abhi, right now. Hit the subscribe and the bell icon quickly. After that, your second assignment is give me a recap of everything that you've learned in the comment section below. And your third assignment, continue your learning with me in Law of Attraction in a much more systematic manner. There's a link below this video. On this link, if you register right now for a limited amount of time, I'm giving you the first lesson of my Advanced Law of Attraction course completely free, where you can learn how to cultivate belief like Anupam Mittal in yourself. But you don't have to go through years of failures and success. You can do it in a simple Advanced Law of Attraction course where you can learn fast. Yes, you can crunch time. You can do things that can be done by others in many, many years in just a few months if you are learning to do things instead of doing trial and error, right? So, see you there in the first lesson of Advanced Law of Attraction. Time for you to be a millionaire now. See you there.